Formula One is the ultimate sport of man and machine working together in perfect harmony. But in the last 72 years, the cars have changed and evolved from the early days with thin tyres and cars that danced around the circuit to the aerodynamic revolution of the late 60s and early 70s to the tyres bulging and losing their grooves to the turbocharged monsters of the 1980s and now to the world of hybrid power. The list of changes goes on and on. And today, we're going to drive one car from each decade of F1 to see which era of F1 was the most fun to drive. If you enjoy this video, please smash the like button down below and subscribe for more F1 content. And the first car is going to be the car from 1950, the first car to ever win a Grand Prix, the Alfa Romeo 158. So here we are then, in the Alfa Romeo 158, and just look at this car. Look at this car. You know what a modern day F1 car looks like, and then just look at this. This looks like something that literally belongs in World War I or World War II. Like, it is a World War II fighter pilot aircraft more so than anything. Yeah, you can see this car, very thin front tyres. There's no aerodynamic downforce on this car, which means that with these thin tyres, look at this. No matter what you're doing, you're constantly correcting a slide. Everywhere you drive, like, this car is constantly sliding. Now, this car was the car that won the very first Grand Prix at Silverstone. It was front engine. The engine produced 420 horsepower, and scarcely believable, this car managed to achieve a speed of about 190 miles an hour, which, yeah, doing 190 miles an hour in this thing is absolutely terrifying, because this car had no seatbelt. So if you crashed, you were getting sent off to space in this thing. And you can see the car is just, it's all over the place. We've come out the hairpin. Even when you're going in a straight line, it feels like you're correcting a slide. Look at this, we're going down the straight and you can still see the wheel is moving ever so slightly. We're still correcting slides even down the straight. And let's see what we can do now is go round the final corner here at Scuba. And what sort of lap time are we going to be able to achieve in the Alfa Romeo? It is a 1:16.636. So yeah, that is that car. Now next up, we're going to move into the 1960s and the Lotus 49. So here we are now, we're in the Lotus 49. Now this car, you can see, looks so much different compared to the car from 1950. This car, all of a sudden, it kind of looks like an early age Grand Prix car. You've got much fatter tyres on the front. The cockpit all looks a bit smaller. The car itself is a lot smaller. We're not as high up off the ground. I mean, the Alfa Romeo, it was kind of like being in a bus. You were so high up off the ground. But this car, you're much lower to the ground. It all looks a bit smaller. All looks a bit more techy. Looks a bit more, I don't know how to put it, much more lighter, much more faster, much more dangerous. And you can see as we get off the line, this car is a rocket ship compared to the Alfa Romeo. Now, the Alfa Romeo was front engine. This car was a rear engine car. It produced about 440 brake horsepower, and the engine was the iconic Ford DFV engine. That was a V8 engine that Ford produced, and it was pretty much in all the cars for about 30 years, unless you were a Ferrari. So yeah, Ford DFV power mounted to the back of the chassis, and this car is just before the aerodynamic revolution, and you can see with all the power and the rear engine and the rear wheel drive, this car is constantly dancing around the circuit, and much like the Alfa Romeo, you are constantly correcting a slide even in a straight line. As we go now into the hairpin, and look at this, as we flick it in, the car just doesn't want to stick. The rear kicks out on the exit as you put the power down, and we cross the line with a spin, and what do we achieve? It's a 1:0.001. We do hit the wall, which, I mean, in this car is not really a surprise because you've got no grip in this car, and we fling it around the corner. But next up is going to be the first car in the aerodynamic revolution as we go to the 1970s, and we go to Ferrari, the Ferrari 312T, the car that famously took Niki Lauda to his Drivers' World Championship. And look at this thing. This is exactly what you think of early day Formula One. Slick tyres, the groove tyres are gone. You've got very small front tyres and very fat, slick rear tyres. And with wings on the car, You can feel the downforce in this car. It's got so much more grip than the 1960s car had, and obviously it has infinitely more grip and speed than the car from the 1950s. This car produced 515 horsepower. It had a 5-speed manual sequential gearbox, and it had a top speed of about 320 kilometers an hour. This car produced about 200 miles an hour. But unlike the Lotus car, this car at least had seat belts, so you know you weren't flung out straight away. But look at this thing, it's a beautiful piece of machinery. And what are we going to be able to achieve around the Scuba circuit? It was a 1 minute dead for the Lotus, and in the Ferrari we achieve a 58 seconds, 0.3 seconds. But now we're going to move on to the 1980s and to one of the most legendary Formula 1 cars of all time. Yes, here we are in the Mclaren MP4 as driven by Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. This car was a V6 turbo engine which produced about 700 horsepower. It had a 6-speed manual gearbox. Aerodynamics have moved on massively since the 70s. The tyres have moved on massively since the 70s. We've got fat front tyres as well as fat rear tyres. And this car won 15 of the 16 Grand Prix that it took part in. And really it should have won all 16 had it not retired in Monza. But look at this car. You can already see how much faster this car is. It's got so much straight line speed. When the turbo kicks in, the acceleration is absolutely incredible in this car. We hit 6th gear there, which we were nowhere near in the Ferrari. And you can see coming around the corner about 180 kilometers an hour. It's at 52 seconds in the MP4. What about that? That is hugely impressive in this car. And now we're going to go to the 1990s. And in the 90s, we go to what else could it be? The Williams FW14B. One of the most iconic cars and technologically advanced cars for its time. A V10 naturally aspirated engine, 3.5 litres. Produced about 750 brake horsepower. Had a 6-speed semi-automatic gearbox. So unlike the McLaren, this was semi-automatic. This car also had traction control, anti-lock brakes, and active suspension. And you can see the difference that it makes having anti-lock brakes. We're not locking up the car. We're not losing it on the rears either because we've got that traction control to help us stick the car into the ground. And with active suspension, we've got perfect downforce everywhere we go. And that means you can fling it around these corners. And we are going to absolutely obliterate the McLaren with a 47.480 seconds. What a car. But next, we're going to move it on to what is my personal favourite F1 car of all time. The 2004 Ferrari, the F2004. Listen to that engine as we rev it up. Listen to it sing as we reach 18,000 revolutions per minute. Per second would have been insane. 18,000 revolutions per minute. And look at this thing. This car has about 900 horsepower from a 3-litre V10 engine. Has a top speed of about 360 kilometers per hour. This car also had traction control. And this car took Schumacher to winning 13 Grand Prix in 2004 and dominating the 2004 World Championship. And look at the acceleration in this car. As soon as you bury the throttle, it flies up 200 kilometers an hour, 250 kilometers an hour, about 300 kilometers an hour as we reach the final hairpin. And we fling it around the final hairpin. And what is it going to be? It's going to be at 43.9 seconds. Unbelievable speed in the 2004 car. But now we move to the 2010 era. And what better car for the 2010s than the RB7 from 2011. This is the first car to really have hybrid power. It has 750 brake horsepower from a 2.4 litre V8 engine, hybrid power which had about 80 horsepower from the kinetic energy recovery system, which the drivers manually operated. This car also was the first car to run on the Pirelli compound tyres, back to slick compound tyres as well. And with this car, Sebastian Vettel dominated the 2011 World Championship. It's not quite as fast as the F2004, it has to be said. It doesn't have that major straight line speed that it had, but it has got a lot of downforce. But you can see here we're not quite reaching 280 kilometers an hour. It was about 260, and we crossed the line with a 46 seconds, so we're a couple of seconds slower than the Ferrari F2004, but it was a fun car. Now we're going to go to the 2020s, and what else to represent the 2020s but the W11 that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes absolutely dominated the 2020 World Championship with. This car has 1,000 horsepower, a 1.6 litre hybrid turbo engine, and all of the downforce in the world. Look at this, we fling it through the corners, accelerating 6th gear there, getting up to 6th gear. This car of course has 8 gears going forward, unlike the Red Bull and the Ferrari, which only has 7. But look at the downforce, look at how much speed you can carry into the corners. This car is truly unbelievable. And let's see what happens now to go down this straight. Look at the straight line speed that it picks up. 260, 270 kilometers an hour. About 290 as we flick it into the hairpin, but you barely lift off. And it's a 42.37 seconds. Unbelievable. But guys, that is all these cars from different eras, and I've got to say that my favourite car to drive from each of these eras has to be, it's not actually the W11. The W11 is an incredible car with incredible speed, but my personal favourite to drive, it has to be the F2004. But that is my opinion, guys. What do you think? What is your favourite car to drive from what era? And of course, as always, comment, leave a like, and if you haven't, of course, subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.